Hi, and welcome to the DNX podcast. My name is Sylvia Christman, and I am your host. And today I am here with my friend Sarena Bahad, and I'm so happy that she could make the time to join us. She's the founder of an organization called Women in Tech, and we actually met, I want to say a couple of years ago in New York City at a dinner party. And we've now reconnected, and we've corrected many times before. So welcome to the podcast, Sarena. Thank you so much for being here. And tell us, where are you right now?
Thank you, Sylvia, for having me. Such a joy. I'm actually currently in Mumbai. I got here yesterday from Goa, and I'll be here for about 2 weeks before I head back to the US.
That's so cool. Where in the US will you be heading?
So first I'll be heading to LA on the 14th of February, and then I'll be spending time there until the end of February before I head down to Austin for South by Southwest.
Very cool.
You know the hustle.
Very cool. Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm like, I might see you there. That sounds really good. Yeah. And I am currently in Germany, and I'll be heading to Mexico from here. I always find it very interesting to see where people are located. You are, like me, kind of a third culture kid. You've lived in many different places in this world, and you are currently also living location independently. Is that correct?
Yes. This is year 2 of this adventurous lifestyle.
And where have you been in these last 2 years?
So it started in Bali. I started in doing my yoga teacher training there. And I spent about 6 months in Asia. After Bali, I spent time in Thailand. I spent time in India. And it was my first time spending significant time in India. I am Indian. I speak 2 Indian languages, Punjabi and Hindi, but I have never spent time on this side of the world. So that was really powerful. And then I went back to the US. I spent time in LA, Miami, New York. Then I headed up to Canada, to Toronto and Montreal. And then I spent the whole summer in Europe. I was born in London, and most of my immediate family is Europe-based, brother living in Prague, mother and father in London. And so I spent a lot of time in Europe between London, Prague, Berlin, Amsterdam, but most of the summer was based in Spain.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love Spain. I just spent a lot of time there this summer. Last summer. Wait, it's 2018, so it was in 2017. Time flies. Sometimes I can't remember where and which country I have been. So tell us a little bit more. I'm really curious about women in tech. I know you and I connect about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a huge supporter of women in the tech community, and really love connecting with you on that level as well. So tell us what that journey was like and has been like, and where you are with that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So after university, my first job was in advertising. I worked at an ad agency. I was at Crispin Porter and Bogusky. And then I moved to San Francisco to get more into the pulse space of the tech industry. And I worked in ad tech for a few years. And then I worked at a company called Angel Hack, where we organized global coding competitions called hackathons. I was responsible for locking in our sponsors for these events, but, bootstrap company. So I was doing a lot more like locking in the venues, getting the judges, etc. And I would just notice that at these hackathons, and just in the tech industry in particular, there just weren't that many women. There weren't that many people of color. And, as we see time and time again with different teams, when you have that sort of diversity, it's amazing for both company culture, but end product also. So that was when the spark had been planted, where this is the space where I want to have impact. I have a voice, and I want to help empower more women and diverse candidates to enter the space. So Women in Tech is a channel both on Instagram and Snapchat, where every day a different woman hops on the channel and does a channel takeover. She storytells her day, who she is, how she got into the tech industry. And most importantly, she leaves the day sharing tips and advice that she wished she had had on the onset of her career. And then with Instagram, you can see the past women that have done takeovers. There are different themes. Tech Tuesday, where you always meet a woman who's in a product or an engineering role. Founder Fridays, where you always meet an entrepreneur, etc. So yeah, it's about changing the dialogue that's happening on social media. I started my days in advertising, and most of the content, unfortunately, that's promoted and sponsored towards young women is all makeup and fashion and celebrity gossip and just the messaging that tells women, hey, don't forget, looks are your number one asset. Just don't forget that. And we don't you know, we don't tell women that they can be makers, that they can do whatever they want, they can live wherever they want, they can chase their passion, they can chase their joy. So one of the awesome things that happens is, besides highlighting amazing women and inspiring one another, there's also this shift that when this woman does this takeover, she begins to then start sharing on social media in that way. Start sharing, like, what are you reading? What are you navigating through right now? What are your challenges? What are your successes? And what can I celebrate with you? That kind of sharing from a place of heart.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. I'm such a huge supporter of that because, the idea that, our beauty is our best asset is just so dated and so misguided and so honestly insignificant at this point in this day and age. And really making sure that there's a media presence and a conversation out there where younger women or even women of all ages are engaging in a dialogue that's elevating and inspiring and proactive, where people are creating and building businesses because that is what will drive change in this world.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. It's we can create and build anything that we want. It's just, very often, and I see that for me too, in my day to day of, mentoring female founders versus mentoring male founders. There's a very distinct difference. Women often ask for permission. They do not know if they're actually even allowed to reach that far, while men, just typically, I would say, if I had to generalize it, I would say they're just, entitled to everything they think is great. That's how they feel. They feel very, very entitled to whatever it is that they want to do. However, the mentoring goes more on the soft skills and maybe including diversity into their goals and ambitions and company structures.
One of the things that we've seen is also the reason why there isn't as many women and diverse candidates is just that access to early exposure that a lot of men and white males in particular have access to from an early age, where, playing games, building things, being around male mentors of theirs that have worked in these industries. And so they have exposure to it early. So we have Women in Tech on Snapchat and Instagram, and these are existing, very popular social media platforms that young girls are already spending hours of their time. So reach them where they're already spending time. And maybe if they're not in an environment where they live in New York City or where they live in Silicon Valley, but they're checking this space every day, it's like, when you see a story, a takeover, it's almost like you're teleported into that room. You're in the same space as the woman who is storytelling on the other end. It's not like a highly produced TED talk where you feel like you're watching it from several miles away. It's like that content is being created by that woman on the other side of the screen. So this way we're breaking that barrier of early access so that more diverse candidates can just be aware that these amazing opportunities in this industry are available to them. And there are people that look like them that are in it and thriving and happy to mentor them with their journey.
Yeah, that's so important. You just make me realize something really interesting that, I've fundamentally, I've always believed I can do anything I want, but I'm pretty sure that has a lot to do with the fact that as the youngest of all his grandchildren, I spent all my time with my grandfather who, he took me, we did like woodworking, we fixed everything. We did all of the handyman work around the house. Yeah. I grew up with a single mom, and, as I grew old, and it was completely normal to me to be very well versed and skilled in these, typically in these tasks that were typically assigned to men. Right. And it wasn't until I was older that very often I would run into scenarios where men in particular would tell me that I was emasculating them. And I would just want to, and I would sit there and be like, well, I'm not really emasculating you. I'm just fixing the car, This is not a gender role statement. I am fixing the car because I can. Yeah. I have knowledge of these things and I'm not restricted to use my brain because of my gender. Yeah. And I'm not making a gender statement. because I'm doing it. And it's so interesting. And that particular dialogue of really making sure that, acquiring a skill set has nothing to do with your gender, and it shouldn't be perceived as such. And it's not a threat to our male counterparts. And it is not something that's not attainable, but yet it's a dialogue that's very hard and still hard to achieve, I think. And it's so important that in this day and age, we have these conversations, we have these role models out there that feel comfortable teaching younger women or even their female peers how to be fully realized in this day and age today as a woman that is fully able to do whatever it is that she feels that she would like to do, right? And there's a full range of things that we could do.
Absolutely. And that's awesome that you had that guidance and that role model so young. And the thing is, for women that don't necessarily have that in their orbit, they can now gain access to that through technology. You can make a choice of, what does your newsfeed look like? What kinds of people are you following? What kinds of journeys are they sharing? As an Indian woman, I can't tell you, especially being here in India, how many comments I get on the fact that, wait, you're traveling alone? You're not married? You're not and also being Indian in the US and not being a doctor, lawyer, engineer, just this tech startup space was very new and difficult to explain. But, I've always very actively used the grand old internet to help me learn and connect with people where I may not have that advisory board around me in person, but I can seek that out. Because growing up in Miami, also, the culture there is very machismo. The industries there that thrive are nightlife, tourism, etc. And I'm really grateful for my time in San Francisco. That was and absolutely in New York, where I met more women who were owning their entrepreneurship journeys. Yeah,
absolutely. That's, it's, you said something so interesting. I work with people on really understanding what a limiting belief really is, and really how often, how much that impacts their ability to make choices, to move forward, and how much it's holding them back. And one thing that's such a hidden belief is a cultural myth. And I was giving a talk in London last week, and I was talking about how the idea that a woman can't travel on her own is so common. It's such a common assumption that so many times in my social media feed, I have people say, "Oh, I'd love to travel, but you know how it is. You can't travel on your own." And it's just, and my answer to that is, no, I actually don't know how that is. I've been traveling on my own for 17 years. I've, gone everywhere I wanted to go. So please tell me, what do you think the obstacle is? Because I do not see it. I am a woman who has traveled the world on her own for 17 years.
And that may be future fears, and that mindset is huge also. I mean, if you're saying, I don't want to do it because this or this might happen, if that's what you're thinking, then that's the kind of energy that you're inviting on your path, And one of the things that I'm loving, again, thanks to social media, is there's a lot of different communities where digital nomads, women in particular, are sharing, hey, I'm doing this and it's going really well. And yes, I came across this hiccup, but this is how I went around it. And we can support one another. And even if there are women that are thinking about it, about taking that leap and are not sure where to start, I really feel this building this community around you. If you can't do it in person, then you can do it online. You have a choice of the kind of content that is being, in your feed every day. So just be more mindful of the kind of messaging that is surrounding you.
100%. It's always a question of, what belief system are you buying into? Are you looking towards other people that are doing similar things that will allow you to progress and move forward and realize your dreams? Or are you listening to people that are feeding into you fears and doubts and outdated belief systems that are no longer working? Where are you looking and who are you listening to?
Yeah.
Hopefully you're listening to this podcast. That's what I'm thinking.
It certainly is shifting now. I'm sure you feel it too. Just this year in particular, I'm so happy to see how many women and just people in general are standing up for when something is not right and not sitting well with them. They will voice that in safety with their community,
Yeah.
which is
beautiful. It's, I started running this series on featuring women in tech a year ago, for, after the election, for, out of reasons of frustration. And I have to say that when I look back a year later, how far we've come in voicing our opinions and voicing our needs and voicing where enough is actually quite tremendous. I have to say I'm very pleased looking back through this past year, how much more has been come to light and how much change is actually happening here.
Yeah.
So tell me, what has been the biggest challenge for you?
So I would say that 2017, there was a lot of self-doubt that I had because we started as a Snapchat channel. Right now, we're growing tremendously on Instagram. And at the time when we launched, Instagram stories wasn't a product feature, and video is so powerful. So, here I am. I'm not a computer science, I don't have a computer science degree. I'm new to Silicon Valley. And here's the first time I'm saying out loud, I'm an entrepreneur and this is what I do. And in particular, when I was around my community of women, of supporters who get that space, who are active on social media, who have seen the takeovers, I would confidently be able to own what we were doing. But when I would meet male, older, particularly white male, older investor types, and I would explain, hey, this is what we're working on, I would get these kinds of faces of, it's a Snapchat channel, or it's just this, and I would allow those comments to really land on me and make me feel small. And this was before, so we've won the award for Best Snapchat Account of the Year. We've been featured in Forbes, CNBC, etc. And now that we're focusing way more on Instagram, like our growth is it's transparent. You can see the numbers grow. You can see the amazing women that are doing takeovers, etc. But at first, when we were starting out and I had to, imagine if I'm talking to an older gentleman who has never even used Snapchat, or he has his own interpretations of what that product is about. Like it just felt exhausting having to prove myself. And I have done a lot of work, and I'm really proud of letting go of that story that firstly, I don't need to get validation from other people. And if there's folks that don't resonate with the work that we're doing, or they can't really relate to the kind of problem that we're solving here, I don't need to have that be a factor in the worth of my work. So that was absolutely a challenge that was tough for me last year, and I'm certainly still working on, and I've let go of those stories, but there are times when I'm in certain communities where that pops up and I need to check myself and be like, hey, let it go. This is not serving you. It doesn't matter. Drop it.
Yeah. It's challenging though, because it's challenging though, and I can relate to it in that way that, as women, I think everything we do, we're always being questioned. It doesn't even matter if it's a Snapchat channel or, a thriving company. We are often challenged in the things that we do to a degree that, especially a straight white male, never would. Right. I have found, I have found throughout my career that even a compliment from that particular, demographic comes with an underhanded form of condescension, and really learning how to separate myself from that and rise above it, and simply not listening and not allowing that to dictate the choices that I make is, I think, a huge part of our journey as women in this world. To simply stop listening, because the things that the world needs does not feed into that one demographic. There's so much diversity out there, right, that resonates with it. But it's that one demographic that, tends to not resonate with any of it because it's challenging their position.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the big news on the horizon? What's next?
So this past year, we're a big media channel now, and now we'll be focusing more this upcoming year on offline events. So I have experience of doing offline events with my work with YC startup Grub With Us, hosting social dinners around the map. And then also with Angel Hack, organizing 200, 300 person hackathons. And so with Women in Tech, we'll be adding offline events to our community with retreats, with meetups, etc. So really excited to bring people together in person. It's always amazing to have amazing conversations online, but there's a special magic that happens when you link up in person. So really looking forward to diving into that.
That's really exciting. So how do people find you? If they want to connect to you, if they want to get to intimately get to know your community?
Yeah, absolutely. To join us simply at Women in Tech on Instagram.
Great. Fantastic. Yeah. And we're also going to make sure that we're going to put that link below this podcast. And we're now already at the end of our time. So thank you so much, Sarena. I'm so excited that you were here. It was such a lovely chat.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your ongoing support. Before I leave you, I want to invite you into my world. Please go check out dnxcommunity.com. This is where you'll find the other nomads and evaders of convention. We'll see you there. And if you're interested in our English-speaking events, go and check out dnxglobal.com. You'll find the link below this podcast as well. And if you have time, one last favor, please go to iTunes, look for Sylvia Chrisman or look for the DNX podcast and leave a review. Thank you so much, lovely people, and I'll talk to you next time.